Good evening, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on which part of the world you're joining us from. My name is Sam Nasser, and this is the Azure Cleveland User Group. A little bit about the group. We meet typically every second week of the month. The meetings are free of charge and open to the public, and it's also open to all expertise levels, whether you're a hobbyist, an enthusiast, a working professional, or students as well. Everyone is welcome to attend. We cover a variety of topics related to Azure, whether it's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. You can find all the meeting information at the link listed at the bottom of the slide, and you can also view past as well as upcoming meetings through that link as well. We'd like to thank our sponsors, NIS Technologies, for sponsoring the virtual meeting space, and the .NET Foundation for sponsoring the Meetup website. In addition, we'd like to thank Manning.com for a 35% off a selection of books that are available at the link listed at the bottom of the slide, as well as with the discount code listed there. Both the discount code and the URL will be listed in the chat window shortly after the presentation. Some general information. First and foremost, please keep in mind, participation is always encouraged. The only stupid question is the one not being asked, so always feel free to ask a question. However, when not speaking, kindly ask you to mute your microphones just to avoid any background noise. And we'd like to keep it casual but organized, meaning feel free to jump in with comments or questions. However, we want to give our presenter enough time to go through the slides and the demos. Lastly, the meeting is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube. And we'd also like to thank all of our live stream viewers through YouTube as well. So for tonight's feature presentation, it is Moving Data with Fabric Data Factory by Andy Leonard. Andy joins us from the Virginia area. He is the Chief Data Engineer at both Enterprise Data and Analytics and Enterprise Data and AI. He's the creator of the Data Integration Lifecycle Management. He is a blogger, trainer, consultant, and developer. And if that's not enough, he's also an author and a mentor and an overall great guy. And we're very happy to have him with us tonight. Andy, welcome to the Azure Cleveland User Group.
Thank you, Sam. What an introduction. Now I've got to live up to all that. Well, we'll have to see here how this all works out. Hopefully you can see the Azure Data Factory logo on the screen there. It's, I don't know how to describe that, but it definitely has that pipeline look to it. Pipelines coming in from different directions. And in my presentation tonight, as Sam mentioned, and by the way, it's a big honor to be here at Azure Cleveland. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Moving data with Fabric Data Factory. And just a little bit about me. The important stuff, I think, is in the upper right there. I'm a husband, dad, and a grandpa. Have 5 children and 5 grandchildren now, and they are all just growing up way too fast. So I mentioned I'm an engineer beneath that. That's a warning. A media caster. I do just every now and then I'll stream to LinkedIn and X. I think Twitch and YouTube. Yeah, those are the 4 that I stream to. I'm also half of the interviewing team at Data Driven, and you can learn more about us at datadriven.tv. That second link on the left there. And we interview some really cool people. So I love that part. I'm a writer, and the latest book that I published, it's been about 2.5 years since I published Building Custom Tasks with SQL Server Integration Services. That covers in the right. And I also farm, although I don't do much other than grow vegetables these days. But there for a while, we had about 50 chickens that were laying hens. And that was a lot of fun, but I started traveling so much, I had to get rid of my chickens. You can only give eggs to the neighbor for so much, before they get tired of watering your chickens and making sure the feed bowl is full. So tonight, it's my pleasure to tell you a story. Just sit back and let Grandpa Andy tell you a little bit of the tale about a toy. And the toy is named Andy Weather. And so what is Andy Weather? Well, it is an Accurite weather station. It's an Atlas style, Iris Atlas style station. There's a picture of the instruments, and there's a phone app that goes with it. And there's a base station. That base station in the lower right is actually sitting right over here behind a monitor. And the monitor is connected to an old, I mean old e-machine. The e-machine is probably 15 or 16 years old at this point. It has 2 gigs of RAM. It's running Windows 7 Ultimate 32-bit. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about maybe why that's going. The truth is that engineering warning that I talked to you about earlier. I'm trying to stress that machine, and running a really old machine is a good way to stress it. I called this a toy because I tinker with it to see um, when it breaks, what that looks like. And I've learned so much about Azure doing that. I even started in the days before Azure. I want to say it was around 2008 or so, maybe 2007, that GoDaddy set up a DMZ basically that would allow you to stand up an instance of SQL Server. I believe it was 2008, and you could use that. You could contact that database directly. It was a connection string, and this was really before Azure was doing stuff like that publicly. And I used that. That's what I set the initial anti-weather database up on. Later, when we were able to do this in Azure SQL DB, that's what I'm running now still. And when the next thing comes along, I'll probably move to that. But the weather station instruments communicate by radio to this base station. The base station communicates to an app running on the machine over USB. And about every 12 minutes, it writes to a CSV file. It's called AccuRightWeather.csv, as it's shown right here in the screenshot. And that gets updated then. And then what I did was I wrote an application that will every hour, when it runs, it'll pick up a copy of that file and send it out to Azure Blob Storage. That's really what you see in this screenshot here is the file sitting in Azure Blob Storage, and it overwrites it every time. As soon as that file shows up, I've gone back and forth between a schedule and an on blob created trigger, tinkering with it. I'm honestly not sure which it's set up to do right now. I believe it's on a schedule, but I could be wrong. And it calls a whack and load incremental load pattern inside of Azure Data Factory. And I call a stored procedure that just truncates the target table. That's all. And then inside of the copy data here, I read from the blob storage file and I write to a table, a target table. And let's see, what else do we do? After that gets loaded, there's a picture of the target table. And once that's loaded, the data is available then to be displayed on andyweather.com. This is an HTTP ://andyweather.com. If you go there, you can see that. I wrote about all of this in a blog post called the Andy Weather Internet of Things here, and we can pop over and take a look at that before we do the demo itself. I'm a big demo person here, so let's check this out. Let's do andyleonard.blog, and if I search for IoT, it should take me to the post that I was talking about. Yep, the Andy Weather Internet of Things. So there's a couple of applications that it refers to in here. One of them is the application that does the blob file transfer. I didn't write the code for any of them. I Googled it and found some code. I put it in C# in a console app, and then I just called a console app from Windows Scheduler in Windows 7 Ultimate 32. But the code's here. It's, of course, the keys and stuff are taken out of it. And for a while, and I mentioned, all of the stuff that's going on here. For a while, I was sending, had a second application that was firing and sending tweets. And I did that up until Twitter changed their authentication to OAuth. I think it was 1.1 or 2. One of the two of those broke my application. I keep threatening to go back and, update the account. The Andy Weather's there on X to this day, but it hasn't been updating in a few years. But lots of stuff here. Um, Not sure what this is about. Pay no attention to the exploding pecans in the background, and Edge doesn't like it. But there's a lot of the same information you just saw, including a screenshot of the application made by Accurite that reads from the instruments and reads from the base station rather than writes to the CSV file. So all of that's in here, and you can read all about it if you'd like. Here's the actual website. I'll zoom in a little bit here. I'm not going to do this a lot because I know it's annoying, but you can see the last update there was from 5 p.m. Eastern. If I press the F5 key, we see that the little spinny wheel there on the left, and there's the 6 p.m. readings. So it's firing about, I want to say it fires about 12 minutes after the hour every time on a schedule. And, it's kind of cool. Again, it's a toy. And I've learned so much about the cloud and Azure and a little bit about coding as I've gone through this. I'm going to expand this till it's full screen. I know if you're watching on a phone, this is a little challenging because my monitor is a 34-inch curved monitor. It's not one of the fancy schmancy ones, but it's fancy schmancy enough. But I kicked up the zoom on the Edge browser to 150 here, so hopefully that'll be good enough. I'm in app.fabric.com and app.fabric.microsoft.com. And then I clicked on the Data Factory, and this is the current home screen. This is the way it looks today. This stuff changes all the time. So especially if you're watching a recording, we're recording this on October 8th, 2024. And I feel compelled to say started at, a little after 6 p.m. Eastern, because it may change tomorrow. So it does that all the time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a lot of stuff here just in front of you. And I'm going to do a little bit of a prerequisite. So I'm going to go to Portal here and create a brand new workspace for us. I say that. I think I went to the wrong login. I did. So let's log out. I almost did the right thing. Let's try this again and see if it'll ask me to log in again. It will not. Let's log out here. Don't try this at home. I'm a professional. Okay. Okay. Let's log out of that account. And we'll go into Portal. And this time log into the correct account, ENTD and ADA. There we go. And let's see, we're not at 150. Let's go ahead and kick that up. I'm going to make a brand new SQL database here. And I'm going to set it to just basically some settings that I usually set it to. You can notice it's set, the default here is 266.68 per month. I'm going to knock that way down, create a brand new resource group, and I'm going to call it RG Cleveland. And the database name will be DB Cleveland. I think I can make that a capital, but I know I can't do the server, so we'll keep it consistent. I'm going to use SQL Auth for this. I'm going to create admin Andy here and my super secret password. Said password, I think. And talking messes me up. I can't talk and type at the same time. Let's do this again. My super secret password, not bird. Click OK. And then it's going to let me change some stuff about the setup. Must not be empty. I thought I did. Yes, I did. Okay. Now I can click OK. Let's make sure everything is still copacetic. It is. And when I click OK, I'm still looking at 266. But first, I'm going to make this development. And when I do that, that knocks it down to just under $5, which is cool. I'm also going to configure the database. And if I use this serverless here, and it says up here, this is general purpose, the most budget friendly, and serverless is a great way to do that. If I knock down the amount of RAM I need here down to 1, which I need way less than 1 gig, when I click off that, you see it's now down to 15 cents a month. I think that's okay. I can swing that. Um, and this enable auto pause is on by default. And I like this. The only thing that's a bit of a hassle is if you're doing this, and by the way, if you're just tinkering around learning, do this. You can hopefully swing 15 cents a month too. But the auto pause will turn it off. And that's one of the reasons why it's as inexpensive as it is. If it's not used for an hour, it turns itself off. And the trick to it is that now you have to kind of warm up that database when it's time to start writing to it. And that can take a couple minutes. So I've done this in production for companies, smaller companies to be sure. But what I'll do is I'll schedule a pipeline that's, needs to start and connect to the database prior to the data warehouse load or whatever other stuff that I'm doing in Data Factory. And I'll just have a connection string that'll go out and select the count star from the sys.tables table. So it'll bring me back that number. But I set the connection there to time out at like 5 minutes. And as soon as that message comes back, then I wait maybe an additional 30 seconds with a wait activity. And then I can go on and start running my load to it because I've warmed the database up. I've kind of turned it on. Not earth shattering, but it saves some money, and some companies need to save more money than others. We're running a locally redundant backup. If I go up to the cost, I'm still at 15 cents for the month. Again, that's not really bad. Review and create, and I think I'm happy with that. So I'm going to click create. That's going to be our target here. We're going to go back to Data Factory, and in Data Factory, I'm going to click on workspaces here, and that's going to open up, my workspace is here. When I click on new workspace, another blade slides out here, create a workspace. And I'm going to name this one WS as kind of a naming convention, and then Cleveland again. So I'm hoping you're sensing the pattern here. Not going to do an image. We're not really going to look at advanced. I just want a workspace. And now it's created one. I kind of like that it puts an image here because a blank screen would make me wonder, just because I'm so old and I've been working with the internet since dial-up modems, that maybe that hasn't loaded yet. That would be one of my thoughts. But it's got something there telling me, hey, there's nothing there. So they're watching out for the old guys like me. I'm going to click on new item. And again, this changes all the time, like I said earlier. I'm going to click on data pipeline. That's my favorite. But if I were to go to all items, you could see there's a data pipeline in there. There's the marking it as a favorite. There's all of these things you can add inside of Data Factory. And it's just amazing. Some of the stuff is in preview. And, some of it's out there available for everyone. And so, yeah, super cool. So we're just going to create, again, we're going to do a data pipeline here at the very top. When I click that, it asks me, what do I want to name this pipeline? And I'm going to name it PL for pipeline load Andy Weather. And it would help if I spelled Andy Weather correctly. Not a lot. It's still fussing at me about that name. And we're just going to leave it like it is and click create. So this is going to take us to a screen that has some presets on it. It's not going to really open up a blank empty pipeline like Azure Data Factory would. And if you're used to Azure Data Factory, there's a lot of similarities, but there's some important differences. You probably already noticed some of them, and you're going to see a bunch now. Um, the Start with Guidance section over here allows you to pick a copy data assistant that'll step you through some questions, kind of guide you in setting up what we're going to do, a copy data. We can use sample data we can practice with here. And then there's some templates that are available out here. We're going to go with a pipeline activity. I'm going to add a copy data activity. As soon as I click that, I get this list, and there's a number of items. There's copy data right at the very top. We'll come back to that. But all of these different items that we can add into here. And I'll mention by way of a short commercial that I do training. I'm actually speaking at the Pittsburgh SQL Saturday coming up, and I'll be there Friday all day doing a day-long training called A Day of Fabric Data Factory, and I also deliver that privately, publicly, and I usually start with a single pipeline, and we put a wait activity in here because it's one of the most simple ones, and then we start tinkering around with all of the stuff that's available. One of the things that's new about this, if you're used to Azure Data Factory, I'm not sure if this works in ADF, but you can click on the title bar in ADF of an activity and drag it around. In Fabric, you can actually click in the white space here and kind of move it around too. And I think you can do that in ADF now that I think about it. We have a list of properties under General that are here. Name is the only one that's required. You see the red asterisk there that tells you what's required. You also have these numbers up here at the top for source and destination. Each have a 1, and we'll get to that in just a minute. The reason that name isn't showing up as a 1 is because it's now it is when I delete the name, is because there's a value there, and I'm just going to name this copy AW data. When I go to the source, I can then pick a connection, and I'm going to exercise the ability to do something called a flexible order of authoring here. So in this particular data factory, I've got some connections that are set up from the last time I delivered a class on this was 8/21, and I started tinkering around in early September with some other stuff here for some streaming. But I'm gonna go click more, and I'm kind of starting at the top here to pipeline level, but I'm going to create my source connection, and then I'm going to create my destination connection. You can do it the other way around. You could go create the connections first, and then they just be here in this list when you were done. But the flexible order of authoring is all about giving you that option. Do you want to create them first? Do you want to build them as you go? And I want to build these as I go. When I go to source here, remember my source is a blob file, and or file stored in Azure Blob Storage. And that's not really showing up here on my list, but there are a number of options here. You can click View More, and it'll take you to this whole list here. And Azure Blob Storage is in here. It's right over here. Or you can do what I do is kind of as filter these because they keep growing. I want to say there's, I don't know, 60 or 80 maybe of them in here now. They may be even more than that. But that's the one I want. And it's asking me for the account name or URL. So I've already started, if I can find it. Yep, Blob Storage, Azure Blob Storage. I've connected to my container here. So this is my storage account, STAW for Andy Weather, container, CONT for container, and then Andy Weather. And there's the file. And if you look, it says it was last modified at 4:12 p.m. Well, that's because I haven't refreshed this since I opened it. Now it's at 6:12 p.m. And I want to get a connection to this. And I could right click, and I'm going to use a shared access signature. Now, a much better way to do this would, if I'm connecting to this using Azure Data Factory, is to use a system or user assigned managed identity, SAMI or UAMI, I guess, system assigned managed identity or user assigned. I usually use the system in demos, and I believe that's the best practice, but I am not a security wizard. I'm doing the shared access signature just to show you how this works. And you can see right here, it says get shared access signature, but that's just for this file. And I'd rather go to the container and get the shared access signature for the container. The main reason is I've had better luck doing it that way in Fabric. I've done it both ways in Azure Data Factory, but it's been a long time since I just didn't say access the container. It's given me a date here. It's actually going to be valid for 24 hours. I can spin that down. I can say make it 08, and I can make it valid till 9 p.m. tonight. It's going to read and list by default, but I've got granular permissions I could add. And of course, I'll set up delete so that I can add that to it. I'll read the data from the file and then load it, into a target table. And then after I'm done loading the file, I can just delete it from Azure Blob Storage. And I'll do that in the course. I'm not going to do it here. The number of options here we're not going to cover, but I'm going to click create. And when I do that, one of the things that it's asking me for is the URL. In fact, that was the first thing the connection was asking me for. Now I could click copy here and it copies all of this in it, but the truth is there's more here than just the URL. And one way to get it, not the only way, is to just highlight that part, including the container, and then copy that. And I can't right click and copy it, so I'm going to do Control C. Let's pop back over to Fabric, and I'm going to put that in here. Now, right away, it's looking at this and it's going, hey, I see one that uses that container because this is my production container, if you will. This is what's running, from the E machine over here. Now, remember, it uploads and overwrites every hour on the hour if connectivity is working and all of that. So I'm not terribly worried about it getting hacked. I don't know what they do, put a bunch of bogus weather data in there. I don't know, or scramble the data in there. It's going to work for, an hour. And it's decoupled because it only does the load once an hour. And like I said, I think it's on a timer now to do that. So, it's going to upload a new file and then it's going to be, that file's going to be loaded. So it's not going to help you a lot. You're not going to be able to do much damage as a vandal if you hack into my weather data file here. I'm going to click create. There's two here that actually were created in the past. I'm going to click create new connection. And I'm not going to use a data gateway, and I am going to use that shared access signature. But before I go there, this connection name matches what I put in for the URL, but I'm just going to change that. I'm just going to delete, and I'm going to call it CONTAW2 because I already had a CONTAW. Oh, I do have 2 already. Well, I'm going to have to make this one 3. Creativity right here live and on the interwebs for you. If I was using this with a data gateway, well, it may help to explain what a data gateway is. This is a way to connect to on-premises and do hybrid data integration, data engineering solutions. And almost all of my customers do that in some way, shape, or form. They've got some data on premises. It may be because of regulatory. It may just be they're nervous, but they're keeping some data on premises. And I say almost because there's a couple that are completely in the cloud. And, that's awesome. They've run into a couple of issues, and we've got a couple of projects that we're talking about that are kind of in the pre-proposal stage now to make them multi-cloud. And I'm sure hoping that they do it and that they let us do the work. That'd be a lot of fun. But you put a data gateway you install that locally onto a virtual machine, or onto some server on premises. And that's what I'm doing here. You can also, create a virtual machine somewhere else, maybe in another cloud. And it's probably what we'll do as part of those multi-cloud solutions is do that so we can sync them up. But we're not going to use a data gateway here today. When I do it in the class, I run it to a local VM called vdemo22, which is a SQL Server 2022 instance running on a virtual machine right here on this laptop. Here's where we can pick the different types of accounts. Service principals are kind of new. They just showed up, I want to say in September, maybe August. That's a new addition to the list. They'll get either system assigned managed identities or something like that. This is close-ish, and this is what I'm working on right now. Like earlier today, I was blogging about this and about how to set this up, how to get one working. One way to do it. I never know all of the ways to do it. We're going to do a shared access signature, and it's asking me for the SAS token. So if I return to this, one reason I left this open is when you close it, it's gone forever. So this is the shared access signature token. And I'm just going to click copy here, and it copies it, and I'm going to paste it in there. And then when I click connect, it's going to try and connect to that. And if it does, it just kind of goes away and it creates a new connection link here. Now, I'm going to click test connection. And I'm doing this for a reason. When I've clicked this in the past, it's given me a forbidden message, an error, and then the error message has been forbidden. And there it is again, 403. So you may see that and go, oh my gosh, my connection didn't work. Well, hold on. Also, if I click browse from right here, I'll get an error. It'll say you got nothing to browse to. Don't go away mad, just go away. And I'm going to type in CONT for container, AW for Andy weather. It's in the root directory. I'm going to go ahead and click browse again. And now it's looking for the root folder, CONTAW. And look, it finds the file. Well, that's encouraging. So I click it and then click OK. It fills that file name in here. And just to prove there's nothing up my sleeve, I'm going to test the connection again. One more time, I'm changing from binary to delimited text. That's what it really is. And try that test connection one more time. Nope, still failing. Still forbidden. But watch this. If I click preview data, it shows me data from that file. So I started recording data on this version of the Andy Weather Instruments. This is version 2 on the 26th of April, 2018. I know the connection's working because I can see the data. Okay. They'll get to this. It's not obviously not high enough on the priorities here for it to have been gotten to so far. And that's not a complaint. They're working on this as we talk. And I'll say, and in fact, it's I'll give them a compliment. The highest compliment that I can give the Fabric team is I've been working with Microsoft software since years began with a 1. And I have never seen them develop a platform with this much functionality this quickly as far as they are now. They announced public preview back at the end of May 2023. And I want to say we're 17 months later, almost, and we're here. And there are companies out there that are running Fabric in production. So that's an amazing amount of work in a short amount of time. So also they've got some, you can go look it up, look at the Fabric's update blog. You can look at the Fabric release and roadmap plan, and it's all out there. And they delivered a whole bunch of stuff that they had predicted for Q3 at the end of September. They're doing a phenomenal job, in my humble opinion. Okay, now we've got the source configured. We want to do the destination. And what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and click the link here, not the link, the taskbar for SSMS and get that warming up. Let's go over here back to our deployment of the SQL Server database. Let's see if we can see it. And we can actually do what I was thinking about doing right here. Let's see. DB Cleveland. The first thing I want to do is set the server firewall. And I can do that by clicking this object here, set server firewall, or I can just go to the server name. I'm going to do it here. And I found this to be kind of a two-step. So the first thing I want to do on public access, and I can try and access this and let you see the error that comes up. this is the way you fix the error that comes up if you haven't done this. First, I click on select the networks, and then I click save. A whole bunch of stuff showed up down here that I'm going to click in a minute, but I've learned, at least it used to be this way. I don't know if it still is or not, but I want to add a firewall rule to make sure I can get to it. Also, this is the big deal. Allow Azure services and resources to access the server. I want to make sure that if that's out there and it's available, I'm going to go ahead and add my client IP and click save. And now we should be, hopefully we should be good to go there. Let's see. I did, this is named svcleveland.windows.net. Let's go here. I know that's really small. I did use admin Andy in the past. Do that. Password and connection properties. I want to connect to DB Cleveland. Let's try that. See what that does for us here. And in here, I have a file save that'll create that target table. It actually creates a schema called stage first, and then it creates a target table. And let's see, we're in DB Cleveland. See if that works. It does. Let's open the select. And this does a couple things. It selects the count, and then it pulls the top 10 rows out of there. And again, I'll zoom in because I know that's hopeless to read from there. There are no readings and there are no data at this point, but we will get there in just a minute. Now we've got our target table created. We already had our target database and server. So let's go to destination and create a new connection for this. And I'm going to go again down to more. And I'm just going to type Azure SQL. And there it is, Azure SQL Database. That's the one I want. Let's pop back over to SSMS and let's do connect, because the name of the database engine will be highlighted. Cheating. And I'll just put that in here. Create a new connection. Just leave it named. Actually, I'm going to change the name. Yeah, we'll leave it there. Not going to use a data gateway. We are going to use basic authentication, which is my admin name. And sure, I believe it's going to fuss about encrypted connection here. Nope, it didn't fuss. Okay, we'll take it. Again, testing the connection just to see if it can talk to it. I haven't picked a table yet, or database yet. I don't think I have to, but we'll see. And I believe this worked last time I tried it. Yep, okay. So now if I drop this down, there's my two databases. I'm going to pick DB Cleveland, not master. It's loading into tables now. And it finished loading the tables. So if I drop this down, I can't see it. There we go. Stage.wx reading. I'll pick that. And again, we can preview the data just like we did in the file. However, we just created this table, so there is no data. And you can see that here. Mapping is important. So I'm going to click import schemas, and it's going to go read the source and the target and bring those in. And it's going to actually line them up. It's going to do that because I created the table with the target fields in the same order as the source fields. So if I scroll down here to the bottom, you'll see the ID is blowing up because I don't have anything to map it to. Well, I don't want to write to that. I want the database to do it. It's an identity. So that's set up. I'm ready. There's a settings tab over here, but I'm not going to make any changes to the settings. So I'm ready now to test this out. I can click on the save button and then run. I can just go click on run and it'll pick up and run. I didn't really go through the menus here, but you can see there's home, activities, run, and view. Um, and Home has a kind of a sampling of all of them, all of the different options that you have here. Activities has the remainder of the activities. You can see there they are. There's a lot of them and more coming all the time, some in preview, for instance. And then run has the validate, run, schedule, trigger, view, history, and again, triggers in preview. And then view will allow you to see the JSON behind this, and here it all is. It's a lot of information there. You can copy it to the clipboard. But one of the things we didn't do is we didn't configure um, uh, source control with this. You can configure Git to work with Fabric, and you can hook to Git in Azure DevOps or GitHub. I usually use Azure DevOps because it's been around for a while. I'm just going to go ahead and click on. I'm going to click on the run button. Notice the save is enabled. When I click on run and I haven't saved, it says, "Hey, you got to save your unsaved changes." So I'm going to go ahead and save that. We're going to watch this run in the background while we're running some queries over here. We can make this a little smaller so we can watch the time. And let's see, it's queued right now. Make it even smaller. Now it's in progress. And we hit execute. We might catch it loading data. Keep hitting. There we go. So it's loaded 61,000 rows. And now it's 121,000. 185,000, 282. I think that's it. Yeah, 282,478 rows are in there. You can see that last reading. I've got it ordered by the ID, which is that auto number field, the identity field, descending. And so that is the latest data. If we go past 7 o'clock, and we will, if we do a load after 7:12, we'll see that there'll be 5 more readings in here. And because again, it does every 12 minutes. So that worked. Some features of this, if I look at the copy AW data link here, if I click on that, I can see a bit of information here that looks a lot like what you see in Azure Data Factory on a copy data. When you look at the little eyeglasses icon, if you're familiar with that, it's one of those if you know things. A lot of good information in here. How much data was read, how many files, how many rows, how much was written. It's good if rows read matches rows written, the amount of data written. And it's a nice little dashboard. And it also, we can expand the duration breakdown. And I'm trying to remember where throughput is. There it is. There's throughput. That I consider to be the OBM, or one big metric for moving data, is throughput. The total duration is fine to know. Sometimes that counts more, but often it's just a derivative of the throughput here. Nice use of parallel copies here. It didn't really do much in parallel, but a little overlap. And advanced doesn't really tell us much. It was just a manual trigger. So kind of cool what it shows here. If we look at the the input, this is a lot of the JSON we saw when we clicked on that display JSON or edit JSON settings, view JSON data. That's what it was. A lot of that same information is here. We look at output. We see an awful lot of information that was displayed in that little dashboard, that mini dashboard there, and more information as well. If we view the run detail, this just shows us overall the details for this execution of this particular pipeline. The pipeline run ID is used for monitoring and the like. There's a lot of uses of that particular uh, piece of metadata. And let's see, what else? Of course, we can export it. We can filter. We can add options here. So we can see different things like the activity run ID if we wanted, source destination, all of that sort of information we can just add in here. This activity type is kind of interesting because it tells me here the activity type is a copy data. If anybody worked with SSIS back in the day, I still actually help people with SSIS, and it's still out there. It's a surprising number of executions happening every month, um, and it's in the millions of execution, tens of millions actually per month. One of the things missing from the logging model in SSIS was task type. You had to rely heavily on a naming convention or just a kind of a comprehensive knowledge of the events that were raised by individual tasks. So I'm glad to see, excuse me, I get up too early. Glad to see they included that in both um, Azure Data Factory and in Fabric Data Factory. Sorry about that. That was a little unprofessional. Um, but let's see, let's move on. We can go to the monitoring hub here. Just click on monitor and you can see there that it ran and succeeded. Sometimes when we run this, it will see here that not started will be the status. And I guess I rambled on enough looking at the output to where we didn't see that this time, or they fixed it. But a nice option here is I can just retry this. I can rerun this exact pipeline ID execution, view the detail of it. So this will show me something very, very much like when we click view details over on the development side, if you will. And of course, I can hit this link for the activity name, and it takes me to something that looks an awful lot like the output tab that we saw there. Again, a lot of good information here. Same sort of stuff that we saw before. And if we hit the copy AW data, we get that nice I call it a little dashboard. That's probably not the right word for it. But one thing I want to do though before we go any further is I'm going to go back to it's not what I want. Let's go back to WS Cleveland. There we are. And we want to go back to the development piece of this. I'm going to run it again. Now, something that I don't want to happen is going to happen here. Well, I kind of knew it was going to happen because I built it this way. And what that something is we'll let this get into it a few more seconds. And then we'll start running a query again. And see our counts at 282,000. Oh my goodness, 343,000. Well, that's not right. If I want this to be a truncate and load, I need to fix that. And I could put in a script. That's one of the activities here is a script activity. And let's see, there it is right up here. If I just click on that, that's how you get it on here. If you click on it and try to drag it, it doesn't do anything. But I could put that in and hook it up before the copy data and say truncate. But there's another property I want to talk to you about, and it's over here on general. It's this retry. And so maybe I want it to retry once if it fails. And I can configure this to say by default, it's going to wait, 30 seconds after the failure, and then it's going to retry. And that's all well and good. Let's say it loads 10,000 records and the network gives out, and it's not reconnected in time. So it would then fail and it would wait 30 seconds and then try again for my one retry. Well, I'd end up with a similar scenario as what I've got over here. I'd have more records and I'd have the 10,000 rows that it loaded before it failed and then the 285,000 that it loaded when it retried. So a way to fix that is to come to the destination advanced, and I can have this pre-copy script here. So the benefit of doing a truncate statement here is that when it retries, it'll execute this as well. And it's, again, pre-copied. So WX reading, I think it's reading. Double check. Yep, reading. Sometimes I do plural. So now if I go back to, if I go to run here and click run, it wants me to save and run, I'll do that. And the first thing it's going to do, and we kind of watch this up here. So it's queued still, so it's not running yet. So in my mind, I hear the sound of a old Chevrolet trying to crank on a cold winter's morning when it says queued. There we go. So it's done the truncate, and now it's going to start reloading here. And we see it counting up like it did before by roughly 60,000 a pop. And there's 180, and it'll do, yep, 253. So, and then 282. Okay, so there we are. Kind of cool functionality there. Let's see, what else do I want to cover here? I think since we're here, I'll go ahead and add some of the notification things. I don't often do this, but I think it's so cool. I'm going to set up the Outlook 365 preview here, and I'm going to tell it when you succeed. I'm going to go to settings and tell it to sign. I'm going to sign into my email. And allow access. And then I get to configure the settings on this. So I want to send it to me. And for the subject, I can add dynamic content. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do it so we get to see the pipeline expression builder and these options that we have here. So activity outputs, we're going to use one of those, but not to start with. There's parameters. There's no parameters in here. There are no variables either, but there are system variables. And we're going to go to this first. We're going to build this, and we're going to have it say pipeline name, and then we're going to have it do the activity output, and we want to know the status. And you'll notice it's giving me errors here. It's going, what the heck, Andy? And it's saying this is not supported as a variable. It's the pipeline name plus is not supported as a variable, and that's because you can't overload these options that you have here. So what we're going to need to do is use a function. So we're going to go do a string function. I can get to it. There it is. I'm going to expand string functions, and then concat is at the top. So I'm going to put the cursor here right between the @ symbol and the first P in pipeline and press concat. And notice it gave me a concat begin end paren, and it's telling me design time here. It's doing an analysis, and it's the first error it comes up on is the function concat does not accept 0 arguments. I used to wish it would tell me how many arguments that it would accept, but sometimes it's a variable. So I'm just going to go with the, knocking out the end parentheses, and notice it's even telling me that, hey, you're missing your enclosing parentheses. So now it's clear, everything's happy. The only thing I don't like is this is going to give me the pipeline name and then no space, and then whether it succeeded or failed. I'm going to put a space in here, and you do that with single quotes. And I believe this will work. Let's click OK, and we'll see. And here in some text, we'll just say pipeline completed. And I realize as I'm typing this, I'm like, what I'd rather, and by the way, there was a list of values you can put in here, system variables. You can also build dynamic content for the message here, and I think I always do that when I write these messages. There's some advanced stuff you can put in here, the from, CC, BCC, all of that sort of stuff, sensitivity, all of that good stuff. I realized looking at this, it's like, I don't want this to be on succeeded because it's always just going to succeed. I want to do completion. And one of the things that we kind of skipped over, and I'll click on it here again, and we'll go back here to the expression, is that this activity status here, we're able to read basically up this constraint, if you will. If you've done SSIS only in the past and you're getting into the data factories, both Azure and Fabric Data Factory do this. This functions as a precedence constraint, which means the preceding activity, copy data, has to complete in order for this output to evaluate to true, and then the Office 365 Outlook activity will execute. But before we had success, which means it had to complete and succeed. So it's kind of looking at two. The other one we could hook up is, on failure, and it had to, complete and fail to execute that. But this one is we just don't care if it fails or succeeds. We just want to fire this on completion. Excuse me. And the reason that's better is because I'm going to read that status, succeeded or failed. That's going to be in the message. And sorry, it's going to be in the subject of the email. Let's try this and see what it does. So we'll go ahead and run it. Save and run. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second while I open email. I think my email is going to open on the screen I'm sharing. That's why I'm closing it. And I don't want you to see that I get email from the Santa Claus. True story. Making that up. Okay, now I'm going to share, but I was right. I was sharing that. Okay, we're still running. We're still in progress here. And we'll have an email pop up here soon, I hope. So we're still doing the data part. And now we tried to do that and it failed. What in the world? I do need to work on my taxes. That's true. It failed because it doesn't like this. And it's telling me, let's look at this message. I'm going to zoom in here. This is an excellent message. The expression concat and then the rest of the expression there cannot be evaluated because the property status doesn't exist. Available properties are, this is the cool part of this, data read, data written, files read, source peak connections, sync peak connections, rows read, rows copied. Let's see, I'm going to search through this until I find something close to what I can use. Execution details, that might be it. Anyways, throughput, errors, effective, billing reference, but they're all here. I actually wrote a blog post about using this error, kind of creating this error by looking for things like, typing in some made up word, QWERTY or something like that, and then having it come back and say, QWERTY, the property QWERTY doesn't exist. And then it'll give you a list of all the properties that do exist. So this is kind of a troubleshooting methodology, if you will. Let's pop down, zoom back out. Let's take another look at this. I'm going to pick out that closing paren and hit dot. I'd love it if I got IntelliSense here. You do get IntelliSense for some of this over in Azure Data Factory, and you do get a little bit here, but not nearly enough. So I want execution details and then close paren. And let's see what it brings back then. So what I'm going to do over here on copy, I don't want to wait that 30 seconds. I don't want you to sit here and have to kind of deal with what it's going to do. So I'm going to deactivate. Yes, sir.
Could I interrupt you for just a second?
Please.
So that script that you were looking at just a second ago, what language is that?
The script activity?
Yeah.
So you can use it for SQL, and I believe you can use it for some other languages, but I'm not 100% sure of that. but at a minimum, like I'll hook it into this database, and I can script out a T-SQL query here, and this could be remember this could be dynamic, just like any of the other content here.
So is it
So
T-SQL or is it Cousteau or both?
I know it'll do T-SQL. I'm not sure about Custo.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you open up that script that you had open a second ago that was concatenating the data objects?
like and here that part expression or
Yes, that's the one, the
okay,
expression builder. Okay.
yeah. And what I'm trying to do is I'm kind of troubleshooting on the fly here to see how this works. But what
Okay.
I'm going to do next is those are great questions, Sam. I'm going to deactivate this, which is kind of, it's very handy. But what I love about this is I can decide what I'm going to assert. So this is going to make it, pick which pipeline it goes down. So I can deactivate this and tell it, act like you failed. Remember, failed to work on completed. And I'm going to do it so that I can skip the previous part of this and I can just run it. I'll save it and run it, and it'll just skip to executing the Office Outlook. And now it's telling me it doesn't like status. I thought I changed that to execution results. Let me execution details. Oh, because the property execution details doesn't exist. It said status a minute ago. And I think the reason it doesn't exist, maybe it's state. Now that's weird. Message state and marked as. All right, let's try that. I think it was all lowercase. Double check. Pipeline output marked as with a capital A. That wouldn't have worked. That's not the name of the property. Let's try this one more time. So I'm not going to go through all of the permutations, but I do want it to send me an email if it can. And this time it succeeded. And I have an email, and there it is. So it's telling me that pipeline name, PL load Andy Weather, and then it's reading that marked as. And the reason it's using that property is because it's set to um, it is set to deactivate it. Hope that makes sense. There's a way to
Yes.
actually get to the outputs, the run status of it when it's not deactivated, but I can't remember it off the top of my head, and I'm not going to troubleshoot any more here in front of you. But
But from someone who's not familiar with the expression builder and just has some T-SQL knowledge, where can they go to learn more about the expression builder syntax and all the various functions?
fantastic. I'll just go ahead and click on this. I've blogged about it a little bit at andyleonard.blog. There's that. Let's see. I don't know that there's a help here. Um, I will search here.
So it
Just
looks like
pop
up in the
open.
top in the description, it says a combination of expressions, and it seems like that's a hyperlink.
Yeah. So the first link that it brought us to here was this learn. Let's go look at that hyperlink. So these we could go to expressions functions. Yeah, let's try that. And yep, you're right. That takes us to some help as well. And a great intro to JSON if you're unfamiliar with that. JavaScript object notation is what that is. And expression languages are hard and frustrating, and they're finicky about syntax. Capitalization requirements vary. I'm pretty sure Fabric Data Factory is I want to say it's pretty consistent. It's very case sensitive all the way through. But I remember some of the others weren't. I know Azure Data Factory isn't, and maybe this one isn't as well. But conditionals here, these are, I believe it's pronounced ternary conditionals. I ran into the syntax when I started playing with SSIS. I'd never even heard of it before then, but you do the if part here, and it's not quite ternary. This is if and then true and then false. Ternary would be, um, just this, or actually in this case, equals 1 comma 2, which is going to be false, um, because one does not equal 2. And this would be the true part. So because equals 1, 2 is false, it would return table. But again, there's a lot of ways and a lot of flexibility that you can do inside of here. You can parameterize data sets. Now, I don't know if this applies to, I don't think Fabric has data sets, at least. Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't have link services, and it doesn't have data sets. So it's interesting that it took us here from Fabric. We clicked the link in Fabric and it brought us to here. I'm looking at the applies to. Try out Data Factory in Microsoft Fabric. And yeah, this doesn't say it covers Fabric Data Factory. But let's look at this one I found. I did Pipeline Expression Builder. Let's type in Fabric and see if we get a different link. Oh, this is an AI trying to answer us, and it may or may not be accurate. But there is help out there, and like I said, I've written about some of it, but there are so many bloggers that are writing about this. I can't imagine if you searched for it a little while, you couldn't find it, Sam. I'm pretty sure you could.
Yeah.
The even the Azure Data Factory expressions, they're so similar in syntax, and a lot of them are duplicated. If you can't find anything else, just go learn expression language there. It's not bad, and it has the same sort of stuff: activity outputs, parameter system variables, trigger parameters, although they don't show up until you've got a trigger configured. Functions and variables, those are all the same in both data factories, and there's a lot more documentation out there about ADF than Fabric Data Factory.
I see. All right. Thanks, Andy.
Yep. Hey, yeah, sure. So anyway, we got to see a little bit more of it. And to be honest, I didn't realize that there was a marked as property when we effectively deactivated an activity like we do. But if I right click on it, I can activate it again, and it'll probably blow up if I try to send a message here. It'll also do Teams. There is a Teams activity for notification, and there it is. And both of the Outlook and Teams are in preview right now. But as you can see, the Outlook one works. The Teams does too. Every now and then, it's rare, but every now and then they'll make a change and do a release, and it'll break something. And usually you just have to wait a day, and somebody will report it and they'll fix it. I've caught it, like I said, a couple of times, maybe 3 times this year, or maybe even now thinking about it, maybe in the past year, maybe 3 times in the past year where I've seen something that broke. So I'm friends with a couple of people at Microsoft connected to Fabric, so I'll just drop them an email with a screenshot and say, hey, there used to be a property here. Where's that now? And then I won't get a message back because they know me. And what'll happen is usually I don't hear anything, and then I'll try it either a few hours or a day later, and it'll be working. The property will return. So anyway, we did what I said. One of the things I didn't cover in this, and I will now, is these icons on the activities. There's the delete. I can look at the JSON for that activity alone, and I can copy it. I don't know if I can edit it here. So let's say if I wanted to change the retry. When I tried to delete one, it gave me that message. So you cannot do that here. But let's go look at view and edit JSON code. Let's see if I can do that same thing. Yeah, so here I can change it to 0 and click OK. And I've actually updated the retry count. So you can do it at right now, you can do it at the pipeline level, edit the JSON code, but not at the individual JSON code editor for the individual activity, I should say. You can clone this. You want to make a new one, just click the button and it makes a brand new one with all the same settings, everything just like you had it. Kind of cool, including the script and all of that. A lot easier to, clone and edit than it is to sometimes create a new one from scratch. You can delete these individual outputs here. Well, I said that. Let's clone a new one. Maybe not. I thought you could. I thought you could right click on them and delete them, but I guess you can't. If you wanted to add activities, I'll go ahead and delete this one. I can just click here and then click on add activity. It asks me, what do I want? So maybe I want to delete data activity after this. You can add activities in the middle here. Maybe I'll get metadata, that sort of stuff. It's very handy, very cool. I think what they've done for allowing us to do this sort of stuff. I didn't talk about zooming, but I'm going to go ahead and delete this because it'll fail if I try and run it again. But if I zoom to fit, makes a nice big one. It's super cool if you're grabbing screenshots for a presentation, something like that. You can also move the slider up and down, make it bigger. I was tempted to do a Wayne's World thing, but I'd definitely be dating myself. I already told you I was 61. I search for different things. You can have up to, I think it's 80. It used to be 40 activities in a pipeline. They bumped that up to 80. That's zoomed to fit there. Auto align doesn't really work unless you've got more than one thing on here. So did I do that right? No. Let's put something else in here then. Let's put a get metadata. Why are you not working? Maybe it's too big. Is that? I hadn't seen that before. Maybe that's a bug. It does not want to zoom. Weird. I'm sorry. It doesn't want to give me a new one. That's so strange. Is it because I'm on that? No. Okay. We'll just click script and connect to it. And let's put it like that. And then try auto align. That's this button over here. And you can see it almost lines up. A little bit of a kink there in the pipe. That'll slow down your data. I'm kidding. And then hide nested activities by default is for if you're using an activity that has nested activities like an if condition. These are the activities here. If I click plus and tell it to put a copy data there and plus and put a get metadata there, if I then hide the nested activities, that's what it does. If I click it again, it shows them. Again, there's a lot we're not touching on here in Flow. I was just trying to more of an introductory session to show you how to move data around, which is kind of the purpose of data engineering. Pick up data from some place and load it some other place. And we were able to do that. So I'll be happy to take any questions, any of the time. I can flip back over to this view and we can go there. I'll just share that if you want to learn more about me, my blog is andyleonard.blog. And if you type that /learn-more, there is more about me. And if I can help in any way, this is my email address, andy.leonard@entdna.com. Be happy to help you. It's always an honor to present. So thank you for allowing me this honor, Sam, and Azure Cleveland.
Uh, Pleasure's all ours, Andy. It's always nice to hear directly from the author and the trainer. So job well done.
Thank you.
Um, Wanted to throw it out to the group. Does anyone have any questions for Andy? Currently none on YouTube, and looking in the chat, no questions. I had one additional question for you, if I may.
Sure.
Can you utilize Azure Data Factory for data cleansing before feeding it into a machine learning algorithm?
So you can use most of what you can do in Azure Data Factory and Fabric Data Factory. Certainly you can do data cleansing. I'm trying to let me bring back the demo here and look at some of these activities. I mean, a lot of different ways you can do data cleansing. Certainly with scripting, looking up to validate that reference data matches your current data. You know, that's important. Making sure that that's there. You can also call things like Databricks and, that's semantic model refresh. That's for refreshing the semantic model in Power BI. You keep in mind too, Fabric is basically three tiers. It's a presentation tier, data engineering tier, and then a storage. And a storage is one like the data engineering gives you a bunch of options. Like, you can run Databricks inside of here. You can do notebooks, Spark notebooks, Spark jobs, that sort of stuff. And that's all part of, if we were to pop back out here, let's go to Data Factory. Let me make sure I saved it so it won't fuss at me when we try to leave. There we go. But if I go to this Data Factory link here and go back to the Fabric part, pop into Data Factory, when we clicked, we did the workspace. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong spot. We click on new item and we see all of these items that are in here. You can use a lot of different options here for, storing, preparing data. And you can actually bring, this is relatively new. I want to say this has been in the last week. If you've got an existing Azure Data Factory that you use for data cleansing or any other data engineering, you can mount that. And they're very specific about that. You can, I double clicked it. I didn't mean to do that. But you could mount that Azure Data Factory. If you navigate to it, you can mount that inside of Fabric, and you can do things like execute ADF pipelines. It's just a host of things you can do. So the answer is yes. Yes, exclamation point, Jim. And it's just so many options that you have. And it's under this one big umbrella of Fabric. I kind of think of it as a mini Azure for all things data. And, you've got, like I said, storage, data manipulation, data engineering, all of that. You can do exploration as well. And then on top of that, you've got the surfacing of that with Power BI. So,
I see. Okay,
yep.
very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. If there's any questions or comments, please feel free to jump in either verbally or in chat. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and go through some wrap-up announcements. I posted a few links in the chat window, and if I may, I'll take back the screen, Andy, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
And let's do this. All right. So there's a few links posted in the chat window, and we'll cover those at this time. So if you are interested in viewing the recording for this, it's going to be posted on my YouTube channel. The link for that is posted in the chat window. Kindly ask you to subscribe so you get upload notifications whenever the video is made available. Also, tech events and other articles are posted on my blog. And again, I urge you to subscribe to that to get the updates. And more importantly, the feedback eval. The link for that is available in the chat window. please take a moment to fill that out so we can provide Andy with some constructive criticism. If you're in the job market, check out devitjobs.com. So this website allows you to filter by specific technologies that you want to work on, whether the job is remote or in person, and of course the geographical location of that job. Also, Andy have touched on SQL Saturday, and let me go ahead and share that with a group. So for those of you not familiar with SQL Saturday, this is an all-day event of SQL and data-related topics, and these events are held worldwide. And as you see here on SQLSaturday.com, they have various events held in Orlando, Toronto, and various cities all around the world. Well, more specifically, looking at the one on October 12th, that's going to be held in Pittsburgh, and it's only a 2-hour drive away. And you'll see that there's a variety of different topics that are available or going to be discussed throughout the day. They have 5 different tracks, all related to data and or SQL Server. The cost is free to attend. However, if you're interested in having the lunch available for you, it will be an extra $15. Needless to say, very minimal cost for all-day training by a lot of great authors and bloggers and Microsoft MVPs, as well as Microsoft team members that will be there as well. So strongly urge you to sign up and attend.
Sam, if I could interrupt,
Please.
I like to describe this list of presenters for SQL Saturday Pittsburgh is a collection of very smart people plus me. I'll also let you know you now have 500 subscribers on your YouTube channel. I was number 500 just now.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Congrats.
Thanks. Also, in addition to the all-day events that are going to be happening on Saturday, the Friday previous is going to be the one and only Andy Leonard, and he's going to be discussing a day of Fabric Data Factory. So this is going to be an all-day session specifically focused on Azure Data Factory, and this is a list of the topics that are going to be discussed on Friday, and this is a separate charge. How much is this, Andy, for the pre-con?
I think it's 125. I'm not positive of that. Just so you know, that's roughly half of what I charge when I deliver these online. You could go to entdna.com and click on training. I think it's because I vary the price. I raise the price a couple of times as we get nearer to the event, but 125 is a deal.
It's a bargain. It's a steal, quite honestly. All-day training and a specific topic by someone who's been working in the field for 30 years, if I'm not mistaken?
Well, yeah, I can make that argument. Next May, it will be 50 years since I started writing Motorola 6800 machine code.
All right. So needless to say, you've been around for a little bit.
A long time, yeah, a couple of minutes.
Very nice. So again, the link for that is SQLSaturday.com, and then you can click, you can click on the link for the Pittsburgh event, and then that will take you to everything related to what we talked about as far as the location, the pre-con or the pre-conference workshop, as well as the schedule for Saturday, October 12th. Last but not least, my contact information, should you need to reach out to me for any questions, snasser@nistechnologies.com. You can also find all my socials on linktree/samnasser. And last but not least, if we're not connected on LinkedIn, please, let's do so. And so with that, thanks again to Andy. Thanks for all that have joined us, either through GoToMeeting, YouTube, or those that will be watching later on the recorded YouTube video. Thank you all for attending, and look forward to seeing you all next month. Good night, everyone.